Abbiamo visto il marketing pubblicitario e gli andamenti, adesso è il momento del settore del fattore umano. Capiamo come quelli che sono gli atteggiamenti delle persone, delle aziende nei confronti della pubblicità digitale, e saluto e invito sul palco l'Executive Vice President Global Thought Leadership di Kantar Insight, Jane Ostler. Jane, nice to meet you. The stage is all yours.
Thank you very much. So, we've just seen some market information about the growth of digital advertising, but I'm going to tell you about a piece of consumer research that we've just done, which is about what real people think of advertising, not only on different channels, generic channels, but also on different brands. So, what you can see here is the reason why we do this. It's really important because what we call ad equity does matter. If you've read Marshall McLuhan, you've read, the medium is the message. So where you advertise is important. The context is important. And we know that you get a much better brand impact if you're advertising in places where the ad receptivity is positive. So that's the context for why we did this piece of research. So I'll get the boring bit out of the way, the methodology, which was we did this study in 29 different markets. We actually interviewed over 18,000 consumers in those countries, and we did the field work earlier this year. We also interviewed at the same time a whole bunch of marketers, global marketers around the world, because we wanted to know what their views were as well. And you'll see in some of the charts in a second that I actually contrast the views between consumers and between marketers. And sometimes, guess what? They don't think the same things. So that's a gap that we need to figure out. So let's just go back to the basics. When we're speaking about channels, we're talking about generic channels. And I'm showing you here not the global results, but the results from Italy. So this is what consumers in Italy say about media channels and what they think about the advertising on those channels as formats. And actually, it's not that surprising that post-COVID, we now see a return to real-world media. So you can see all of these channels are, real-life channels. Sponsored events, they might have interpreted those as digital, they might not. But where we have an interesting number one is actually point of sale. So what consumers say about point of sale is it's relevant and it's interesting to them. They like magazine advertising. As we've just heard, out of home is scheduled to grow, in particular digital out of home. Consumers really love out of home advertising. And we know from other research we've done that they also really love digital out of home and all the amazing creative possibilities that we have with that channel. So that's just generic at the level of the channel. What we can see here is we're contrasting this on the right-hand side with what marketers think. And marketers still have the number one channel is TV. Then they have sponsored events, online video, which we know obviously is growing super fast, digital out of home, and out of home ads. So there's a bit of a mismatch between what consumers think about the advertising channels, perhaps that they're more used to, and what marketers are thinking and growing. These results do differ, by the way, in every market. So when we ladder them up to the global level, we're just looking at big global platforms. But it's really interesting to understand the detail here. And these do change every year. So the other thing that we also looked at is individual media brands. If you can imagine, we had a list of media brands that were present in every market, whether they were online, offline, newspapers, television stations, the whole lot. And then globally, obviously, most of those channels that are available globally are online. So if we look at number one media channel, the most popular ad environment among consumers this year, it's also number one in Italy, and that was Amazon. So Amazon Italy is the most popular channel in Italy. The reason why consumers say this is again because it's relevant, The targeting is appropriate. The frequency is okay. They're not bothered about excessive frequency. And they think it's relevant and interesting, and it's the right kind of context for that advertising. Just to give you an example of how we ask consumers these questions, we gave them a sort of positive range of attributes that they could agree or disagree to, and a negative range of attributes. So they range from fun, interesting, relevant, informative, but the negative ones were things like dull, boring, excessive frequency, inappropriate targeting, that sort of thing. So the channels and the brands that score most highly here are the ones that have the most positive attributes, the ones that I've mentioned. TikTok was number 2. TikTok was actually number 1 last year, and the reason why consumers love that as an ad platform is mainly because it's fun and entertaining. And we all know that advertisers, marketers, and agencies try harder when the format is a bit different. You know instinctively you have to do something different on TikTok, whether you're using an influencer or whether you're creating, an ad on your own through an agency. You have to make it like the channel. So it's really, really important that the context matters. But they also like ads on Spotify, Google, and Snapchat as well. There are some slight differences year on year. Spotify has moved up significantly. And as we start to see more platforms being more hybrid, for example, Netflix, as I'm sure you know, has just introduced advertising on a kind of lower level subscription basis. I think we'll start to see the sort of hybrid platforms start to appear here next year as well. I'm not going to go into detail on this, but there was a number 1 brand in every single market that was very different. But you can see that Amazon is fairly high up there in a number of different markets, including Germany, Italy, and others. Twitch is hugely popular in France. Pinterest comes out number 1 in the UK. But there's other retail media platforms like Mercado Libre, which performs very well in Argentina. And TV brands, Google is performing well in Taiwan and the Philippines. So we're seeing a big spectrum here about how consumers perceive advertising on these platforms. Obviously, some of these are global brands, and some of them are local brands. So local is still hugely important to consumers. They did feature on the top 5 for each of the countries. So this is where we come to the contrast, really, between what consumers think, you're familiar with the list there on the left, and what marketers think, so the list on the right. So for marketers, influencers, by the way, was a really big thing that marketers are still looking at for this year and next year. Instagram is number 1, Google number 2, YouTube, TikTok, then Spotify. So we think it's really important for marketers, media agencies, and publishers themselves to understand what do real people think about these things as ad brands and ad platforms. It's not enough to just know the numbers, the media measurement, the reach. It's like, what do people actually feel about advertising? How can publishers adopt innovative new formats that consumers actually like and appreciate? That's one example of why it's important. A couple of other things from the marketers survey, which I'm just going to cover very quickly. And this is the 1,000 marketers that we spoke to, that 42% of marketers test little to none of their creative. And my big plea here is that I think we need to start taking digital creative more seriously. It's not enough just to throw it out there and hope that it works with some numbers that don't compare to anything. We need to understand how it really works. Is it going to have the right reaction? Are consumers responding in the right way, especially as we invest more money in digital? Is it tailored to the right context? Confidence is actually going down, so that's no good. So why are people not testing? Why are they not understanding their digital ads in advance? And marketers in Europe are aware of the importance of creative testing, and there's varying views about whether we should use AI or not. But all these tools and features are available to test advertising. I'm not going to talk about attention, but it is important, but I'm running out of time. And we need to understand how marketing is expected to increase next year. The metaverse features very highly there, but marketers don't really know what it means for them yet. But all the channels that are expected to increase in spending are digital. And that's it. There is more available on the website if you want to download the report. It's all in there for every market. So just get in touch if that's something you're interested in learning more about. Thank you very much. Thank you.